topic tonight is security in Hadoop. So I always think like Hadoop, is it insecure or not secured? So insecure, it is secured, but we are feeling it's not secured, or it is not secured or not protected. So that's the topic. And in this tonight style is not only presentation, so please feel free to contribute as well. So if we are discussing on a topic, on a point, for example, so if you have something to contribute, and I am sure that you have, please make that comment. It doesn't have to be a question, so that we also learn from you. Yeah, and it helps the community a lot. So first of all, I would like to thank our sponsor, ZetaSet. The entire team is here. CTO is here. And John Armstrong is here from Zeta, and the rest of the team. Please raise your hand. Thank you so much for your support. And this definitely made it happen. This year, BI in terms of big data, BI implementation, all the big enterprises are talking about actually moving to production. So security, followed by topics like multi-tenancy. These are a few topics or areas that enterprises are looking into. How do we do it? So we will learn a lot from ZetaSet and their solution. And thank you again, and looking forward to your presentation. So surely thanks to the host, Third Eye Consulting Services. TJ is here. Thank you, TJ, for organizing this every month. And Third Eye Consulting Services have been around for 2 years. It's a big data services company. So system integrator, you can say. Without further ado, let's go over the agenda as announced without this mic, that we will delay 15-20 minutes to accommodate everyone. So immediately, we will go over how to implement a secured Hadoop system that we are seeing as a system integrator, a big data services company at Third Eye Consulting Services with our clients. So what we are seeing, what are the challenges, what we can do, what we cannot do. And I will be doing part of the presentation. Bala Chander, he's a big data solution architect. He will accompany me on that. Thank you so much, Bala. So followed by Hadoop Exposed, the security gap, by Brian Christian, CTO of ZetaSet. Where are you, Brian? Thank you so much for coming, and we are really looking forward to it. So from 8 to 9, it's an open session, Q&A, networking and mixer, and a little logistics around. We'll be taking pictures if you don't want to be part of it. At times we know if you don't want to be. So you can take this side. We'll not photograph. After that, I'll be doing Facebook. Yeah. So, but this this room, we can be here till late. So we are tenants here, so you can be here till 10, 10:30, it's fine. So we don't have to close the room at night. All right, without further ado, sounds like a plan? Yes? Yes. Okay, let's... definitely for this presentation from Third Eye, I have several slides to go over, talk about it. Every slide, when we look at it, from BI platform or solution implementation perspective, we can spend on each slide hours. But at the same time, we'll move on. But please do contribute. We want to learn from you here, absolutely. So enterprise Hadoop security implementation challenges and few use cases that we have done. So by Aparajita Das, that's me, and Bala Chander, that's him, big data solution architect. Before we even start with the security, let's look at few numbers. What's going on in big data space? And when we talk about big data security, big data security, that may be just a little piece in the entire, Hadoop implementation building block. So let's look at what's going on in this market segment in terms of implementation for an enterprise. What are the building blocks? What are the main challenges? And we will drill down from there. So in this slide, you see that the market forecast in US billions of dollars, and 2016, $53.4 billion market segment. I do have some numbers for India and US alone as well, if you're interested, and China. So if you're interested, you can reach me for later. So this is huge, huge. So that's the market segment, but at the same time, we are talking about big data, right? But maybe I have a timer on. Just 1 second, please. Shouldn't have. So when we are talking about big data, how much, what are you doing? Yeah, it wants to leave me. Yeah. So what's the size? What are you talking about? Right? How much data is there in the world? What's your guess? Of course, it's in exabytes. Exabyte is 10 to the power 18. So that's pretty huge. So 2007, there was a report that there were 296 exabytes of data present. And 2007, we know, I did not do Facebook, which I do every hour right now. Right? So social data, we are not even taking consideration of social data and other various M2M data and all. So 2007 itself, we had 296 exabytes of data. And we all know Moore's law. Every 2 years, we can store double the amount of data on an IC, correct? So if we apply that logic also, and without even considering today's humongous social data and other data set, it's around 830 exabytes of data today. It should be. So 830 exabytes of data, plus let's add all other data sets that we are seeing today, which has started the last 2 years, 1.5 years to 2 years, and that's also getting added. So definitely we know it's 830 exabytes plus, correct? So that's huge. So, and we are talking about doing business analytics on that data set, not business intelligence only. We've been always doing business intelligence. All right, sales number, last quarter, what was it? Business intelligence, great, but why? So now the technology is there, and so we can do it. We see the computing capacity grew 58% year over year last 5 years. And telecommunication grew 28% annually. So if the market segment, the forecast is so huge, got it. I consult for Microsoft, so I know all those little buttons. Yeah. So, so market segment is so huge, and we saw in terms of dollars. Then we saw the volume is so big. In terms of, so now enterprises are interested in implementing big data infrastructure inside, so that they are not limited to do analytics only on their internal data set, but also data from outside, right? All this, we are all aware of it already. So what's the future? BI is the largest planned IT investment area in next 3 years. By the way, all these numbers are from Gartner and Forrester report, so you can download those from the internet. So by 2013, this year, BI collaboration and social software would be combined to create new decision-making environments. So last few years, we saw as a system integrator that we are talking about it, we are learning the technologies, but now this year is the time that it is happening, actually happening. We are actually talking to clients, moving their dev and POC projects to production. So by 2014, next year, 40% of spending on business analytics will go to system integrators, not software vendors. Gartner says that. So I work for a system integration company, so I'm happy, very happy. So you know, all enterprises are talking about implementing big data infrastructure. So we all know what role Hadoop plays in it, without going into detail. So now, if we are talking about installing, implementing, and supporting business units inside an enterprise and using Hadoop technology, let's quickly look at what are the building blocks we need to even, consider and take care. Absolutely. So this is a pie. On the left top, that pie is operational architecture and management. So when you have, say last year you've been doing a lot of POCs, a lot of development work, a lot of experimentation work. Now you are talking about moving it to QA and production. So of course we need the roadmap for it. So if that's the case, from operational architecture and management perspective, so if there is a system and we implement MapReduce code and everything, it can do the analytics, but it has to do every day automatically for you. So to set up that infrastructure from ops management perspective, few building blocks here. Of course, this list is not all. This was one, one list for one of our clients. So architecture and ecosystem must. We have to design a good architecture and ecosystem around it. We are focused in here, Hadoop infrastructure, building blocks. Capacity planning. How many servers do I need today, tomorrow, and after 2 years? So some kind of planning. Reliability and protection. Security and scalability. So here at the top line, we see that 80% of Fortune 500 companies have a Hadoop cluster. Only 20% of them have it in production. That's the number in 2012. So why 80% of the rest of the companies were not in production? So one of the challenges that we saw is security, and that's why we are very happy that tonight the topic is security in big data. So we'll not go over the entire list of these building blocks, and this is something we use for our practices at Third Eye. So in the same pie, so in terms of infrastructure setup, also we have to work on NoSQL data models. So the RDBMS data model transitioning from, say, RDBMS to columnar to column family oriented data model, it's like a mind shift, right? So I've been doing SQL query whole life. Now I have to deal with this struct. So, I don't want to do it, but at the same time I have to do it now. So NoSQL data modeling, ETL, how do we design? So are we going to still use ETL tool? And we are talking about moving huge amount of data, right? So would it work? What's the ETL strategy? What's the data load strategy? So right-hand side, the top slice is provisioning and service model. Multi-tenancy is one of the challenges that we are seeing, and I'm truly hoping with the security implementation, multi-tenancy would be enabled as well. So a lot of enterprises are interested in PaaS model, platform as a service. Then you have a Hadoop cluster today. So say one business unit is using it. So tomorrow you want to host multiple business units, maybe multiple clients. How do you do that, right? So if it was not secure, then how can you host 2 business units or 2 clients? Can we do it now? So bottom slice is release management. All right, we have code in POC in the data science cluster from the dev. How do we move to QA? How do we move to production? Right? So these are various building blocks that we need to set up policies and procedures and then execute. So that's what we saw that are needed. So definitely security is a big challenge that we believe that can enable multi-tenancy as well, which is a real wish, top in the wish list for enterprises now. So in terms of security, what are the three facets of security that we are asked to implement? Authentication, authorization, auditing. Authentication, authorization, I'll not go over what those are. We've been doing this. Auditing, right? Auditing in any analytic platform is extremely important. Without audit process, if there is an enterprise data warehouse, we cannot pass the compliance. So in smaller startups, we all know that there will be always audits at the end of the year before the funding. So audit must be very, very clean in any company. Now we are talking about big data auditing. So we have our big data system in dev, QA, great. We are not reporting any numbers yet. The moment we start reporting numbers from there, it must be audited and it has to have compliance. Right? So how do you do that? So this is one slide, types of users on Hadoop ecosystem. Now slowly moving to security, the topic security. Let's talk about in the building blocks. There are so many blocks here that we have to really work on planning before we implement. But security being definitely the number one we see. So in terms of security, why it needs to be secured. So of course we know that, but at the same time, what kind of users are going to access your Hadoop system? So some examples are here. We see in big enterprises, developers, administrators, business analysts, power users, release managers, scientists, business users, and production support engineers. So how do we set up an infrastructure so that all these guys have different access, different priorities, different privileges, different service accesses, different server accesses, different disk quota, etc., etc. So how do we control it? So up till last year, we knew, of course Hadoop security can be done using Kerberos. And we all know how tedious that work is. So in this slide, I would like to invite Bala with me, and go over his recent project experience in terms of Hadoop infrastructure, Hadoop security implementation. So first, so let's go over first the challenges. So that would be even for Jadaset as well. The challenge that we are facing today. Number one, Hadoop security is a very specialized task. It's very tedious. Someone with a lot of unique system administration experience, they can do it. Right? So if it's like file-level security, all right, not everybody has that expertise to do at system level. How do you protect your files? So I can say in the Valley last year, one of the biggest organizations in the Valley lost huge amount of data because someone just deleted the file. Yeah. So another challenge, dependencies. We are, how many distributions are there? Hadoop distribution, 4 or 5, right? And so Hadoop distribution version of supporting software. So there are so many dependencies here. Do I know Mapper distribution? Do I know CDH4? Do I know Hortonworks HTTP? Do I know Microsoft Hadoop on Azure? Right? And do I know IBM's distribution? Do I know in LexisNexis's HPC system? So if I'm talking about security, so I have to know so many areas. So a strict guideline or steps to set up, special knowledge and experience, and is there impact on performance? So you're accessing Hadoop file system, and then I'm going to add layers of security. So is there impact on our performance? So, Bala, do you see any other challenges than these ones, or which one you think the most you are seeing right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are trying to solve these issues in some way. An example would be that they've segregated networks just for production people and those who need access to those. And they have another cluster for people who want to access it, like data scientists and so on. And there's another segregation going on in terms of the end users. So they give them only reports or something like that without allowing them to access the cluster per se, right? So they get the net results of the thing. And they go through the security layers which the company has, like LDAP security, or they add another layer of a waitlist or something and give access to them. But the problem is, like Gita said, there's it really comes down to the authorization section, right? Certain people are allowed to see to certain data, and certain people are not allowed to see, right? And then there's even more restrictive things about certain data. For example, privacy concerns on data. They want to make absolutely sure nobody has access to those kind of information. For example, let's say you have some account on Facebook, right? They don't want people to know that you have, not everybody can access that. Or if there's a transaction ID involved, they don't want people to know the credit card information and the other details, right? So these are all privacy concerns, the security concerns in a big enterprise. But at the same time, what's happening is there's a group, usually some engineering group starts off with this big data and they know how to move the data. Then there's another group, like the business people saying, why can't I have access to this data set, right? And we have to give them access. So people, what they do is they come up with some hybrid model to satisfy all these conditions. There's no one silver bullet which says, okay, here's a secure system where we can segregate people, we can have tight controls over the access, we can have auditing laws, and so on. So that's been my experience so far.
Sure. Thank you so much. So if you look at on the slide, implementation actual case, how was it done in one of the clients in Bay Area? Please, you can go over that list as well. But at the same time, recently we studied MapR Hadoop distributions, security. How can we implement on using when we are using MapR's Hadoop distribution? So a few things that came to our mind. It was very useful and made it very easy for us. Was please, they have a white paper on their website, mapr.com, and things like volume level delegation. What's a volume? It's a logical grouping of files or directories on Hadoop system. So and on that logical grouping, using their enterprise manager kind of tool, you can give access to certain user and go on and on. And if you have DBA background, you know what I'm talking about. So MapR security. This is one example that we studied and we're working on that. So okay, security. Then security, authentication, authorization, and auditing. But what about encryption? Right? When data moves in the Hadoop cluster at Yahoo, we hear that they have 40,000 machines. How do they, when the data moves from one machine to another, is it encrypted? How is it secure?
So here's a question.
I have a question here. It may be a very basic question. Suppose if you can give some attributes to the data, and can't you just do some role-based security on the attributes? Is it that difficult, like any other data warehouse security?
The way Hadoop does is the Hadoop file system, the HDFS, is very similar to the BSD file system. So there's groups, there's users, and so on. And there are some special user groups for the actual Hadoop thing that's running, like MapRed and HDFS. So that's the only control, but everything goes to the name node. So name node is kind of the boss in the whole system. And we have the job tracker too involved. So those things can authenticate with who's the user and what access they have, if you've turned on Kerberos or anything like that. They don't do anything with data. The data node has no idea about security. Okay? So the data node has free access to all these things as long as the name node tells it, you go ahead. So we don't have that kind of restrictive security model in which, on Hadoop systems. Yeah.
So my question is, today without Hadoop, all this authorization, even auditing, it's already done in the infrastructure level. So for instance, packets are being encrypted, your data is being encrypted, stored, and you retrieve and whatnot. So my question is, how is it done in the Hadoop? Is it some kind of API where, for instance, if you want to decrypt the packet, or decrypt the data, I shouldn't say packet. Sorry.
Hello?
If you want to decrypt the packet, again, the data, so you get the key, you decrypt it, and then you let it go. So is it like that, or is it completely interleaved into the name node you are talking about?
So when you're dealing with the data, you're basically, it's up to you how you process the data in Hadoop. You typically have to write some program and tell it what the logic for the parsing is. So that's the place where you'd add these kind of services into your system. Maybe the data which you have, after you parse it out, is all encrypted, and you need to go ask the service for the key in order to decrypt it. Now obviously this is, okay, obviously there's a problem here, right? Because the permission and security access layers are based on users and user groups. That's how it is in the Hadoop world. Whereas the people who are on the encryption and decryption side, that's a different set of things. So you might have to go get access to that in order to make it happen. So two different sets.
Right, but
you have to deal with those issues.
you need a different authorization server too
Yeah.
for the Hadoop.
So exactly, so all this manual work and tedious work as a system integrator, we've been doing it. We've been creating secure Hadoop infrastructure, but it's been very tedious. That's why Jetaset is here to, go over how can we do it automatedly.
See, there are other like enterprises have other needs, like SOX compliance, right? They have various sets of rules and access levels, and these are all done on the fly, right? Today you can be on a group, tomorrow you're out, you're gone. So how do you deal with all those issues?
But that is more on the structured data, the SOX compliance and all that stuff.
Yeah, but people are using financial data today.
But what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
coming back to my question is, that's more on the structured data, and you have control over the data. But in your case, you said the data cluster, you can't really go into that and control data. You only go with the name node or whatever.
So that structured data that you're talking about, this is the problem that many enterprises are facing. So they have traditional databases, right, like Oracle or something, and then they've gone to Teradata or whatever the big machine is. Again, they're facing another bottleneck. So they're going like, oh, we can't deal with this. Why bother with this system? Let's use this nice scalable model that we have. But now this is floating data all over the place. It has no security model on top, which is as rigid as that on like an enterprise level thing that you're talking about. So that's the issue that we're talking about.
Just imagine the session log data, right? 2005, 2006, maybe beyond a few gigs, we could not have processed. And I was at eBay, and we used to process like 5% of session log data because we didn't have the technology to do it. But at the same time, nowadays we see that 100% of session log data being processed, and various questions whys are answered. And if it is answering a financial number, those records will get audited, right? So you better prepare for it. Yeah, sure. Just a last slide from our end. So few security challenges that we see data protection, and accidental loss. So as I mentioned, a very prominent company, enterprise in the Bay Area, so they lost huge amount of data because of a delete option that they had on the file system.
Is that Facebook?
Know him. You can guess. So then also security challenge like map-reduced jobs and resource control. So if you have hundreds of users accessing your big data infrastructure, and that to Hadoop. So how do you allocate these map-reduced jobs and resource control in terms of CPU, memory, and I/O, and etc.